Welcome to the deep dive. We love digging into unexpected stuff, and today it's something that might seem a little dry at first, scientific naming.
Definitely more to it than you think.
But trust me, things get interesting when you look at who gets to name new species and who they choose to honor.
Yeah, that's the big thing, right? Who are they choosing to honor with this?
Exactly. And it's not just historical, which kind of surprised me. It's happening right now. Our sources show that like a whopping 90% of species named after scientists are named after men.
That's huge.
That's a huge disparity.
Yeah, it really is. And it raises some really interesting questions
What do you think?
about how we recognize and celebrate scientific contributions, across time and genders. And what's fascinating is this isn't just like a snapshot in time. It's been going on for decades. You ready to dive in?
Yeah, let's do it.
Data on the screen, numbers come alive. Male, female flows where the patterns thrive. Visual charts, public colors unify. Gender decoded, bringing truth to light. Watch them all drum fill.
Ever think about how cool it would be to like name a star? Like literally point to a pinprick of light in the night sky and say, that one's mine, I named it. Well, scientists actually get to do something pretty similar. With newly discovered species, it's like carving your name in the history of life on Earth.
That's a great analogy. And it highlights a crucial point. Naming a species is more than just assigning a label. It's about shaping scientific legacy, influencing how we understand the intricate web of life. And it even impacts public perception.
Okay, so there's more to this than meets the eye. And for this deep dive, we're going to be focusing on the naming of parasitic helminths. Get ready for some serious dinner party knowledge because the stats on this are about to blow your mind.
Before we jump into the shocking figures, let me quickly explain how this naming system works.
Right.
It's all based on taxonomy, the science of classifying organisms. Each unique species gets a two-part Latin name. Think of it like a first and last name, to distinguish it from every other living thing on this planet.
Makes sense. Latin always adds a touch of class. Right. But here's where things get interesting. According to the research, almost 90% of parasitic helminth species named after scientists are named after men. Only 10% honor women. Did you expect that kind of disparity?
It's a stark imbalance, that's for sure. And it raises some important questions about recognition and representation in the scientific world. You see, having a species named after you isn't just an ego boost. It's about cementing your place in scientific history.
So it's a big deal, like winning an Oscar of the science world.
Exactly. And it's about more than just the individual. Think about the impact on the public's perception of science. If we only see male names associated with these incredible discoveries, what message does that send about who can be a scientist?
That's a great point. It's like we're subtly reinforcing the idea that science is a boys' club, but it's 2025. Shouldn't things be more balanced by now?
You'd think so, wouldn't you? There has been a gradual shift towards more inclusive naming practices, but progress is agonizingly slow. Back in 2005, over 95% of species named after scientists honored men. These days, it's closer to 85%. An improvement, yes, but still a far cry from representing the true contributions of women in science.
It makes you wonder why some areas of research are lagging behind others. Why are some countries seemingly more progressive in this regard? Let's dig a little deeper into these trends and see if we can uncover some answers.
Let's break down the data by type of parasitic helminth. When we look at nematodes and trematodes, over 92% of those named after scientists honor men. Monogenians fare slightly better at 88%, and cystodes show the most balance with 18% honoring women. Still not ideal, but a glimmer of hope.
So some fields have a bigger problem than others, and geographically, where's the biggest gap?
The U.S. and Spain stand out. Over 90% of species named after scientists in these countries honor men. Interestingly, Brazil is leading the pack with about 20% of species named after women.
Okay, hold on a second. This whole thing about naming species after scientists is fascinating, but I have to share a few mind-blowing facts that jumped out at me from the research.
I'm all ears.
It seems like naming species after family and friends has become more popular in recent years. And guess what? This trend is way more gender balanced.
Now that you mention it, I have seen that trend emerging.
Yeah.
It's as if personal connections help counteract some of the systemic biases present in formal scientific naming.
Right, like when it gets personal, fairness kicks in. But here's another one. You know how some legendary male scientists like Darwin and Linnaeus have entire genera named after them? Very few pioneering women have received that level of recognition. Even Marie Curie and Rosalind Franklin, absolute giants in their fields, haven't had nearly as many species named after them. Mind-boggling, isn't it?
It highlights the enduring impact of the legacy effect. The historical underrepresentation of women in science has a ripple effect, influencing how many species are named after them today.
Oh.
However, and this is crucial, it doesn't fully explain the disparity, especially in recent years.
So there's more to this than just historical bias.
Absolutely. We need to peel back the layers to understand the complexity of this issue.
Okay, so we've got this intriguing disparity, but why should we care? Why should we even bother analyzing who gets their name on a worm? It's not exactly front-page news, is it?
It may seem like a trivial detail, but think about the bigger picture. It reflects broader issues of scientific legacy, the recognition of women in STEM, and the insidious ways in which hidden biases shape our world.
It's like a tiny window into a much larger problem.
Exactly. To understand the issue, we need to delve into the root causes of this gender gap.
Let's do it. What are the key factors contributing to this imbalance?
One of the most obvious factors is the historical underrepresentation of women in science. For centuries, women were simply excluded from many scientific disciplines, which naturally led to a smaller pool of female scientists eligible for this type of recognition.
Makes sense. But this is now right. Surely we've moved past that.
While progress has been made, the past casts a long shadow. We can't ignore the role of implicit bias. Taxonomists, even with the best of intentions, might unconsciously favor male scientists when choosing names. It's about ingrained patterns and societal norms that are difficult to shake off.
So even if they're trying to be fair, there's almost like a default setting in their brains.
You could say that. Another factor is the historical dominance of men in academic networks and gatekeeping. They were more likely to name species after colleagues within their own predominantly male circles. It becomes a self-perpetuating cycle.
It's like an exclusive club where the membership cards are passed down through generations.
It's a very apt analogy. We also can't overlook cultural and regional differences. Some parts of the world might have more ingrained biases based on traditional gender roles in academia and science.
Okay, so it's not a one-size-fits-all situation. Different places, different biases. Anything else?
Finally, there's the frustrating issue of delayed recognition for women in science. Many brilliant women only receive recognition posthumously or long after their prime research years. This obviously limits their chances of being honored during their lifetimes.
It's like they have to jump through extra hoops just to be seen. We've laid out the problem and all the contributing factors, but is there any hope for change? What can be done to make things right? It can feel a bit disheartening, to hear about all these systemic biases. Like, are we really making progress? But let's shift gears a little bit and talk solutions. Is there any hope for change? What can we do to create a more equitable system for naming?
There's always hope. The research that we're diving into for this deep dive offers some solid recommendations for building a more inclusive naming system.
Okay, I'm ready for some action items. What needs to happen?
Well, first and foremost, taxonomists need to make a conscious effort to balance the gender ratio when they're naming species. It's about being mindful, right?
Yeah.
Checking those implicit biases and actively looking for those opportunities to honor those deserving female scientists.
So a little intentionality goes a long way.
Absolutely. And it's not just about, righting past wrongs. We also need to celebrate the incredible work being done by contemporary female scientists. Naming species after them increases their visibility, and it sends a powerful message about, their contributions to science.
It's like saying, hey, world, check out this amazing scientist. They're making waves, and their work deserves to be recognized.
Exactly. We also need more transparency and open dialogue within the scientific community. Journals and scientific societies should be encouraging, those discussions about gender representation. In naming practices, let's bring these issues into the open and encourage critical thinking about the choices being made.
It's about sparking a conversation and making sure everyone's on the same page.
Right. And remember those exclusive networks we talked about earlier. One way to break that cycle is by ensuring diversity on naming committees. Having a broader range of voices involved leads to more balanced outcomes.
It's like saying, let's have more people at the table to make sure everyone gets a fair slice of the pie.
A perfect analogy. It's about creating a system where that recognition is based on merit and contribution, not gender or any other irrelevant factor.
These ideas sound promising, but let's be realistic for a sec. How do we get people to actually implement these changes? I mean, is this just wishful thinking? Or can we make a real difference?
Well, changing those ingrained patterns takes time and effort, but it is achievable. The key is a multi-pronged approach.
So what would that look like in practice? Give me some concrete examples.
So imagine a taxonomy journal, publishing a special issue highlighting, the contributions of women in the field, and actively encouraging authors to consider female scientists for those species dedications. That's a tangible step towards raising awareness and promoting change.
Okay, I like that. What else?
Scientific conferences could host workshops or panel discussions, specifically on gender representation in taxonomy and species naming. These are opportunities to educate, brainstorm solutions, and build momentum within the community.
Okay, so we've got journals and conferences on board. What about individual scientists? What can they do?
Well, mentorship is crucial. Senior researchers, especially those in influential positions, they have a responsibility to mentor and champion younger female scientists. They can encourage them to publish their work, nominate them for awards, and put their names forward when those naming opportunities arise.
It's about those in power using their platform to lift others up.
Precisely. And it's not just about individual actions. Institutions also have a crucial role to play. They can implement policies that promote gender equity in hiring and promotions, create supportive environments for female scientists, and fund research projects led by women.
It sounds like we need a whole ecosystem of change, from individual actions to institutional policies.
Exactly. It's a collective effort. And don't underestimate the power of public awareness. Sharing stories about amazing female scientists, highlighting their achievements, and advocating for more inclusive practices. These all contribute to shifting societal perceptions and creating a more equitable scientific landscape.
So even those of us who aren't, card-carrying scientists, can we play a role?
Absolutely. Every voice matters. By engaging in these conversations, challenging outdated norms, and celebrating the diversity of scientific talent, we can all contribute to a more just and representative scientific community.
It's like that saying, a rising tide lifts all boats. If we all work together, we can make a real difference.
Exactly. Remember, change doesn't happen overnight. It takes sustained effort, commitment, and a willingness to challenge the status quo. But the rewards are more than worth it. A more inclusive scientific community benefits everyone, not just women, but the entire field of science and society as a whole.
You've painted a very hopeful picture. Now, I want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier about the legacy effect. If the gender imbalance is partly due to the historical underrepresentation of women, what can we do today to ensure that future generations inherit a more balanced view of scientific achievement?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? The answer lies in investing in the next generation of scientists. We need to encourage young girls to explore STEM fields, provide them with strong role models and mentors, and create learning environments where they feel supported and empowered to pursue their scientific passions.
It's about planting the seeds for a more equitable future.
Exactly. And nurturing those seeds with care and attention.
So it's not just about fixing the past. It's about building a better future.
That's the heart of it. We can't erase history, but we can learn from it and work towards a future where scientific achievement is recognized and celebrated, regardless of gender. And that brings us to a really crucial point. It's not just up to scientists and institutions to make this change happen.
I was just thinking that. We've talked about, the things scientists and institutions can do, but what about us non-scientists? Can we really make a difference in something as specialized as species naming?
Absolutely. Remember, culture shifts, they don't happen in a vacuum. Even small actions can contribute to a more inclusive scientific legacy.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Give us some ideas. What can our listeners do right now to get involved?
It could be as simple as, seeking out and sharing stories about amazing female scientists, past and present. Spread the word about their discoveries and their contributions. Make sure that their names are known.
So it's about amplifying those voices that have been historically marginalized.
Precisely. And you know what else you can do? Pay attention to the language used in science communication. Challenge those outdated stereotypes and assumptions. If you see an article or a textbook that only features male scientists, speak up. Point out the missing perspectives.
It's about holding those in positions of power accountable, even in subtle ways.
Precisely. And don't underestimate the power of supporting organizations that are dedicated to promoting women in STEM. There are some incredible nonprofits out there working tirelessly to mentor young girls, fund research projects led by women, and advocate for more equitable policies. Even a small donation or volunteering your time can make a real difference.
I love that. It's about putting our actions where our outrage is.
Exactly. And you know what else is powerful? Simply engaging in conversation about these issues. Talk to your kids about the amazing women who have shaped scientific history. Encourage young girls to pursue their interests in STEM fields. The more we normalize the idea that science is for everyone, the faster those outdated stereotypes will fade away.
You know what's really sticking with me from this whole deep dive? It's the idea that even something as seemingly insignificant as the name of a tiny worm can reveal these deep-rooted biases that, permeate our society.
Yeah, it's often in the seemingly small details that we see the larger patterns most clearly. And by recognizing those patterns, we can start to challenge them and create a more equitable future.
So to our listeners, we leave you with this final thought.
Okay.
What will your contribution be? How will you help shape a scientific legacy that celebrates diversity and honors the achievements of all?
Keep learning, keep questioning, and keep pushing for a more inclusive world. Even the tiniest actions can create ripples of change.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time for another fascinating exploration of the world around us.